It's September 15th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with the stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Kim Jong-un's extended stay in Russia. The North Korean leader is expected to stop by and tour a fighter jet plant in Russia's Far East on his way home today. While the Kremlin made it official that Vladimir Putin has welcomed Kim's invitation to visit the North, South Korea on Thursday warned Pyongyang and Moscow to stop any arms deal. And President Yoon will once again call out the two sides' apparent weapons accord at the UN General Assembly in New York next week. He'll also go for a last-minute push for Busan's World Expo 2030 bid. The death toll following floods in Libya has hit over 11,300 now. Global aid effort continues to pour in, with the World Health Organization releasing $2 million from its emergency fund for the country. North Korea's Kim Jong-un appears to be making the most out of his Russia trip. Following the summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin, Kim is looking to explore a fighter jet plant today in Khabarovsk before returning home. Our North Korean affairs correspondent Lee Dae-hyun starts us off.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to be on his way to the city of Khabarovsk. A train station in the area was spotted getting ready for Kim's visit as Russian President Vladimir Putin mentioned that Kim would soon visit there. Kim will reportedly look around a high-tech aircraft production plant in Khabarovsk on Friday. It seems that the North Korean leader will also visit a local shipyard as well to look at attack submarines and warship building facilities. His last stop in Russia is expected to be Vladivostok. There, he will likely tour the Russian Pacific Fleet, where he might actually go on a warship and watch a military exercise. Kim will then head back to North Korea. Kim and Putin could possibly meet again soon, as the Kremlin on Thursday said that the Russian leader accepted Kim's invitation to visit the North with pleasure. The Kremlin spokesperson added that every bilateral agreement will be made through diplomatic channels. It also said that the two leaders exchanged rifles during their summit on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the South Korean government says any actions by North Korea and Russia that violate UN Security Council resolutions and threaten South Korea's security will come at a clear cost. The National Security Council committee members on Thursday called on Moscow and Pyongyang to not get involved in an arms trade. The Biden administration has also remained consistent with its message that any new arms deal between Moscow and Pyongyang will lead to, quote, repercussions. It also urged North Korea to not support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
And the U.S. has imposed sanctions on more than 150 entities accused of aiding Russia in its aggression against Ukraine. Now, this time, the sanctions package also targets the so-called transit countries like Turkey and Georgia. Lee Seung-ja has more.
In what is one of the largest sanctions packages announced by the U.S. State and Treasury Departments, Washington on Thursday issued a fresh round of sanctions against over 150 entities involved with helping Russia evade sanctions and supporting Moscow in its war against Ukraine. Those involved with helping Russia include businesses and people in Turkey, Georgia, the UAE, Russia, and more. According to Reuters, the latest designations target shipping and trade companies involved in helping repair sanctioned vessels linked to Russia's defense ministry, while also helping with the transfer of dual-use goods, items which have both civilian and military application. It also targets those that sell Western technology to Moscow that could be used to fuel its war in Ukraine. However, watchers have raised concerns over the fact that some of the entities targeted in Washington's latest sanctions package are from Turkey. The U.S. imposed sanctions on 5 Turkish companies and 1 Turkish national linked with helping Russia evade sanctions and supporting Moscow in its war in Ukraine. However, the U.S. State Department says it's not worried that measures taken against Turkish firms will derail Sweden's NATO bid.
We have a constructive, warm relationship with the Turkish government. They are an important ally of ours, and we don't see that in any way these sanctions should have any impact at all on that accession.
Also, among those sanctioned by the U.S. on Thursday is Russia's largest vehicle manufacturer, AutoVAZ, and a major local copper producer, the Russian Copper Company. Lee Seung-ja, Arirang News.
And President Yoon will be in New York next week for his second appearance at the UN General Assembly. He'll be mingling with around 30 leaders to convince them that Busan is the most suitable city to host the 2030 World Expo. Kim Do-yeon has more.
President Yoon is looking to strengthen South Korea's status as a globally contributing country while making his biggest push yet for Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030. On Wednesday, the presidential office announced that President Yoon will be in New York from Monday to Friday.
During this general meeting, the president will launch an all-out diplomatic campaign to get support for Busan's bid to host the World Expo in 2030. At the moment, around 30 meetings with other leaders are scheduled, with more in the works. This is something that no other South Korean president has attempted during overseas trips.
As soon as he lands in New York, President Yoon will start his series of bilateral meetings with the leaders of Turkmenistan and the Czech Republic, among others. On the second day, he will meet with his Ghanaian counterpart as well as UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. A number of bilateral sideline meetings will happen in between, including with 10 countries that South Korea never has met before one-on-one, such as San Marino and St. Lucia. The third day will be when Yoon speaks to the UN General Assembly.
President Yoon will promise to the world continued enhancement of official development assistance to close the global development gaps, support to reduce carbon emissions and the transition to clean energy in climate-vulnerable countries, and for South Korea to be responsible for the world enjoying the benefits of digital technology.
Kim also explained that Yoon will have the opportunity to share South Korea's vision as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for 2 years starting in 2024. On Thursday, he will be returning to New York University's Digital Vision Forum, as last year he was there to emphasize the importance of digital technologies in contributing to the expansion of freedom. He is expected to re-emphasize South Korea's taking the lead in creating regulations for fair and equitable access to digital assets. On his last day, he will wrap up his stay in New York with meetings with the leaders of the Pacific Islands. While the top office's focus may be on winning votes at BIE for Busan's bid to host World Expo 2030, it does come with the backdrop of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un visiting Russia's Vladimir Putin, with the two strengthening military cooperation. An official says the public can expect an appropriate analysis and message for the two in Yoon's speech to the UN General Assembly. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The death toll from the devastating floods in Libya's coastal city of Derna has soared to over 11,300 as search efforts continue. According to local authorities on Thursday, there are still over 10,000 more people missing, with city officials saying the death toll could rise to 20,000. Now, that figure would mean a fifth of the city's population died in the disaster. And in response, the World Health Organization announced it will be releasing $2 million from its emergency fund to support the flood victims. The WHO added that it also sent contingency supplies as well as trauma, surgical, and emergency supplies from its logistic hub in Dubai. The U.S. benchmark WTI rose above $90 to a fresh high for the year on Thursday. And the world benchmark Brent crude also hit a 10-month high the previous day. What's behind these continuing increases? We're joined by Professor Heo Jun-young this morning. Welcome to the program.
Hello. Good morning.
Professor, first, walk us through the reasons behind the oil price hikes. Now, what's driving the soaring prices? I hear the flood catastrophe in Libya has also to do with it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So both supply and demand side effects are going on. So from the supply side, Saudi Arabia and Russia, they extended voluntary supply cut, which was expected to be ended at the end of this month, but they extended into until the end of this year. So the supply side effect will go on. And also, on top of this, OPEC member Libya shut down its eastern oil export terminal due to the deadly storm. And OPEC Plus member Kazakhstan reduced daily oil output for maintenance. So, I mean, these are the supply side effect. And also, I mean, we are at the pace of the U.S. interest rate hike. I mean, it's coming to an end. Though I mean, though the world economy will be bouncing back soon, so people expect that. So demand side also there's driving high demand of oil. Due to the better expectation about the future economic condition.
Right. You just mentioned the U.S. inflation also being influenced by this price hikes. Now, the U.S. Consumer Price Index ticked up 3.7% on year last month, and also because gas prices climbed. Then the question is, how much higher will the prices actually go?
Actually, every 3 months, the FOMC members, they have their expectation about the future economic outlook. So the most recent forecast is coming from the June forecast. I mean, the FOMC members, they expect that at the end of this year, the inflation will be 3.2%, but the latest number of PCE, personal consumption expenditure, inflation is 3.3% in July, but due to the rising oil price, I think their expectation in this month, in September release number, will be slightly higher than 3.2%. So, which is still a lot higher than the Federal Reserve inflation expectation of 2%. And the Fed official, they believe that inflation will be reaching to 2%, their goal until the end of 2020, I think, 5. So maybe we'll have 2 more years to go up to until the inflation is brought down to 2%. So it's kind of time needed.
Right. In line with what you're saying, Saudi Arabia and Russia are expected to extend their oil cuts to the end of the year. Now, is there anything that can be done to bring the prices down in the meantime?
The thing is, the Federal Reserve, U.S. monetary policy is the key. So, people in the market, they are worrying about, whether or not there's one more interest rate hike from the Federal Reserve. Because higher interest rate, maybe it reduces, aggregate demand, and then maybe it will affect the inflation, and so that the inflation can be brought down. So, that's the only way, I think, from the, demand side. And supply side effect, maybe inflation is affected by global oil price, but there's, not much thing that we can do about the global oil price. So maybe, it's up to the OPEC or OPEC plus their supply, how much supply they do. And also it will depend upon the global economic condition. Currently the Chinese market is not in a good sense. Because of the their real estate market.
Right.
But if their demand will, if that bounce back, it will have a kind of downside effect of higher oil price. So maybe things are dependent upon this kind of global economic situation as well. So.
Sure. Many experts are predicting that the U.S. central bank's fight against inflation will be trickier if oil prices continue that, upward trend. Then will surging oil prices be a variable to consider at the next FOMC meeting next week? What's your outlook?
Yeah, so next FOMC meeting will be held in this month. People expect that this month the Federal Reserve will maintain the same interest rate. 5.5% interest rate. But the thing is, whether or not this higher oil price will affect their decision on November, which is the next FOMC meeting, and it will depend upon how long this higher oil price will go. So if this kind of trend will persist, maybe the Fed will be considering another interest rate hike in November. If not, maybe the 5.55 will be the terminal interest rate, and then next year maybe the Fed will start to decrease the interest rate maybe.
All right, Professor Ha, thank you so much for your insight this morning. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
South Korea and its world lowest birth rate is well known, but one county around 2 hours from Seoul has actually seen fertility rates there go up. Our Lee Soo-jin went to see how this was possible.
Baby whales and classroom chatter might soon be a thing of the past. This elementary school is just one of many in South Korea that have been abandoned and shut down due to the lack of students. And this comes as South Korea's fertility rate continues to shatter records. The nation's total fertility rate, the average number of children expected per woman, tumbled to a record low of 0.78 last year. As of 2021, South Korea is the only OECD member country where the total fertility rate is less than 1. And this year's fertility rate for the second quarter fell further to 0.7. We asked young South Koreans why they're hesitant to have children.
If I get married, both me and my husband will probably have to work because of the high education costs. But if there's no childcare center that I can trust, it might be better to just not have children.
The reality is that raising a kid is costly because of the high education costs.
But there are still areas in South Korea where fertility rates have actually gone up. This county in Gangwon-do province has a fertility rate that greatly exceeds the national average. Let's go find out how it has achieved this. We met with the mayor of Hwacheongun County, who told us that this was largely due to a decade-long effort to provide a comprehensive support system with a focus on alleviating the education cost burden.
We wanted to provide equal opportunities for people regardless of their economic background, from the time the baby is in their mother's womb until the child graduates college.
The county pays college tuitions of not only students attending domestic colleges, but also any of the world's top 100 universities, as long as they have parents who have lived in Hwacheon for at least 3 years. While the nation's fertility rate has been on a steady decline since 2015, Hwacheon's fertility rate actually rose from 1.2 in 2021 to 1.4 last year. During this period, a new public postpartum rest center opened. Postpartum rest centers are clinics unique to Korean culture that help mothers recuperate after giving birth. Women typically stay at these centers for 2 weeks where staff care for newborns while the mothers rest. They can cost up to around $12,000.
Anyone who's lived in Hwacheon for at least a year can use the center for 2 weeks at no cost. I've lived here for 3 years, so I'm staying here for free.
There are also programs aimed at helping them transition into motherhood smoothly.
The programs that teach us practical skills such as how to bathe a newborn and breastfeed properly have been super helpful.
The county also offers services where elementary school students can hail a bus through a smartphone app.
주로 오는데 얼마 정도 걸려요?
2분.
The bus stops at various locations and parents receive text messages that inform them of their child's location. The importance of coming up with a comprehensive solution like this was echoed by one expert.
The government has already implemented various policies, including financial incentives for having children, improving work-life balance, and expanding childcare services. Yet to be effective, policies must take a comprehensive approach.
She added that there also needs to be more measures aimed at providing affordable housing and stable jobs, as well as creating a cultural shift away from the traditional nuclear family structure. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. We begin on the small Italian island of Lampedusa, where over 7,000 migrants and refugees have arrived in just 2 days. Now, the volume of people has exceeded the island's own population of 6,000, and its local reception center is being overwhelmed. Many of the migrants, including children, have been forced to sleep outside. In response, authorities are moving thousands of migrants to Sicily, which has bigger processing facilities. Lampedusa is Italy's southernmost island and is known as a hotspot for migrants looking to cross into Europe from North Africa. The journey is perilous, with many crossing the Mediterranean Sea in flimsy wooden boats. According to the UN Migration Agency, so far this year, at least 2,000 people have died attempting to reach Italy and Malta. Now, in the United States, President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, has been indicted on 3 federal gun charges. All 3 charges on Thursday relate to allegations that Hunter lied on forms while buying a gun at a time when he was a drug user. In July, Hunter was set to have the charges against him dropped for pleading guilty to 2 misdemeanor tax crimes and illegally possessing a gun while a drug user. But his plea deal with prosecutors was rejected by a judge, citing concern over the agreement's structure and the scale of its immunity. The president's son is a former lawyer and was discharged from the U.S. Navy in 2014 after testing positive for cocaine. He is also facing an investigation into his business dealings and allegations of tax evasion. Now, a sweater worn by Princess Diana has been auctioned for over $1.1 million, the highest price ever paid for a sweater. It went under the hammer for a 2-week online bidding war that ended on Thursday. It was originally estimated to fetch a high of $80,000. The iconic red sweater features a pattern of white sheep with a lone black sheep. Diana first wore the sweater in public at a polo match in 1981, a month before marrying then Prince Charles. The sweater became an instant sensation. Now hosted by Sotheby's, the sale was part of a fashion icons auction that featured 10 iconic pieces from influential figures, including Sarah Jessica Parker and Michelle Obama. And finally, models with disabilities took center stage at New York Fashion Week. Over 70 models took to the catwalk on Wednesday and showcased a range of adaptive clothing, specifically designed to give those with disabilities access to fashion. The show was organized by a non-profit, the Runway of Dreams Foundation, which works with fashion retailers to adapt their clothing to the needs of all consumers. Brands represented at the show included Adidas, Tommy Hilfiger, and Victoria's Secret.
Good morning. It has been a very rainy and gloomy week with more wet conditions expected through the weekend. It's drizzling in the capital, but parts of Jeollanam-do province are seeing downpours with heavy rain advisory being issued there. And today's rain will mainly come down in central parts of the country. The capital area and parts of Gangwon-do province could see 10 to 60 millimeters of showers. The rest of the country could see 20 to 80 millimeters into Saturday. Southern regions will see rain tapering off and taking a break from this afternoon into tomorrow. So you will notice highs going up 3 to 4 degrees higher than yesterday, but breezier in central regions with rain all day. Jeju-do will be rain-free today, but rain that starts on Saturday will continue into next Monday. Now, a rainy weekend ahead, and next week looks to be as rainy and cloudy as this week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back next week because it's Friday.